Hello everyone, Niget here, and welcome to another video about Littlewargame. Today I am bringing a tips video for brand new players of Littlewargame who are just checking it out and want to have a good playing experience. That being said, we've had a huge boom of brand new players, so again, if this is helpful for you in any way, please leave a like, please subscribe so that you can continue to see additional videos that come out. And let's get into the video. Right, so if you are brand new to the game and you've been checking it out and you've been playing on your browser and you've been having a fun time, one of the first things I recommend new players to do is to play on Google Chrome rather than browsers like Firefox, Internet Explorer. Google Chrome is probably the fastest and the least laggy of all the browsers that you could play on. It's extremely smooth, and it just plays a Littlewargame very well. Haven't had any issues with playing on Google Chrome at all. Next, so let's talk about how you play. So when you get into a game of Littlewargame, it's pretty important that you play on full screen. There's a couple reasons for this, and I'll give you an example. So here's a photo of a game that's being played not on full screen. You'll notice that the game is running. It's running on Google Chrome. It's doing a good job. I can micro this, but if there's ever a moment where, let's say, I need to go down, if I ever want to scroll down, I would have to move my cursor down towards the bottom of the screen without moving it onto this this taskbar over here. The moment it does, it'll start kind of bugging a little bit, not necessarily bugging, but because I'm not playing on the browser won't respond to my mouse movement anymore, similar to side by side. So windowed normally is not the way to go. Normally, preferably if you could play on full screen like this, it lets you just get full usage out of your screen for playing the game. And then additionally, if you ever need to move your mouse to the side, up or down, you can do that without ever having to worry about that kind of stuff. Next, use zoom. So what is zoom even? So zoom is the magnification of which your screen on your browser specifically uses. So the magnification your screen uses. So for instance, with Google, you can set the magnification pretty much to anything, whether it be like 100 or 80 or 90 or like 120 or maybe 200. So I'll give you an example. But first off, I prefer setting my zoom to 80. It lets me get a good amount of map on my screen. And at the same time, it reduces the interface size. So let's give you an example of this. So here we have the map. It's set to 100. It's set to 100. The zoom is set to 100. So I have a good amount of vision. I've played like this before. It's okay. But on the next slide here, I have it set to 80, which increases the view range I can have. Of what I can see on my screen. It lets me see more, and then at the same time it actually reduces the interface, this map, these buttons, the things that are highlighted. So it gives me even more room where I can see my screen. So this is what I prefer to play at. Some people play at even higher, or even I guess the number would be smaller actually. So they zoom out even further, but sometimes what they'll do is they'll zoom out further so that this menu can be shrunk, but they'll manually scroll forward so that they can see all the details they need to see. So use zoom. Any level of zoom you want to use is absolutely fine. Next is hotkeys. So how do hotkeys work in this game? Let's talk about adding things to your hotkeys. So there are no pop-ups that are going to show up on the screen itself to let you know what your hotkeys are. They're pretty much just, once you set your hotkeys, they're going to be there every time you click 1, 2, or 3. Your units are going to get selected, but you won't be able to know that they're selected unless you like manually or like unless you press your hotkeys and then you select them. So how do hotkeys work? You can control a unit in the game if you select a unit or if you select a group of units, and then you press and hold shift, and then you press like one of the number keys. So specifically like at the top of your keyboard, 1, 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5, however you want to set up your hotkeys. Whenever you press that number from that point on, you'll be selecting those units. So if you shift, click an archer while holding shift, click on an archer while holding shift, that will be added to your hotkey group, but you have to assign the group. So it'd have to be like assigned to 1, so you have to hold. So you'd have to have them selected, whatever you're selecting, and then you shift, and then you press the number 1, and that adds to your group. At the same time, you can even shift and hold like whatever number. So let's say I'm shifting and I'm holding number 1, and then I'm taking my mouse and I'm dragging it over like over a group of units. Now when I select those units, they'll be added to that hotkey. Here's how we make new hotkeys. So let's say you have your main army on number 1 on the 1 hotkey, but you want to switch it over to a different hotkey. What you can do is but let's say that you had already selected something on like your hotkey 2, and so you're trying to replace your hotkey 2 from like buildings to units. Let's just say that's the scenario. What you would do is you would press Control, and then you'd hold Control, and then you would drag over the units that you're selecting, and then you would also have to select the hotkey group you're selecting it to, right? So Control number 2, and then you drag and select the group you're wanting to make a new hotkey out of. That would be the way to do it. So basically, Shift adds to whatever is already in the hotkey, and then Control makes a brand new group. So pretty complicated way of explaining it, but makes a lot more sense. Let's talk about how vision works in Littlewargame. So the first thing we're going to want to know about is ramps. How does vision work around ramps? Here we have an example of a worker. At the very bottom of this worker, or at the very bottom of this ramp, this worker cannot see past this point of view. The reason why it's grayed out, similar to this area here, is because the worker has been to those areas and has seen those areas already, but cannot currently see into those areas. So for instance, this area is kind of darker, but it's not completely black like these areas. That's because the worker has been here and has scouted this area, but cannot see any new information here. Whereas in the black areas, no new vision, no information has been scouted here whatsoever. So it's brand new information, basically. As we move towards this ramp, you'll notice that once we get to this point, some vision is revealed specific to the ramp. So the ramp units on the ramp would be revealed. So now this area is revealed. And then once we get to about the middle point of the ramp, only then do we start seeing what's on the other side of the ramp here. So it's kind of like the eyes of the worker are on the same level as this ground over here. And now he can see like the units that are there, and then likewise, once you're at the top of the ramp, you can see basically everything you need to see here. But you only need to be at this location in order to see if any army is here. This is really good, especially if you're trying to get some scouting information. Like, you only really need to go to this part of the ramp. You don't need to fully commit to the top of the ramp to get that information. Next, let's talk about construction vision. So in this example, you'll notice that houses or buildings that are building have a certain amount of vision. So for example, this house, it's finished construction. It has vision very similar to the worker, where it's able to see pretty far out. However, when we get to the barracks, you'll notice that the barracks does not have as great of a cone of vision as the house would. Otherwise, this would have been able to see a little bit further out, a little bit further south. So as long as a building is building, or it's under construction, its vision is reduced. It won't be able to see very far out, which leads to situations where someone could proxy a workshop, or like a watchtower rather, in locations like this, and start attacking your buildings without even you being able to see the building that's being constructed. So in this case, I tried to do an example. It's kind of blocked, but in this example, this house was being attacked. There should be a projectile somewhere from the watchtower. I can't really spot it out. It's like a white line somewhere. Can't really see it. But in the following example, you'll be able to see, like right here, after this is built, it'll finally start to see the watchtower. So the question is, does that mean you're going to be blind whenever you build your buildings? Like, can someone just put a watchtower here and you'll never be able to see it because the vision is so bad when it's being constructed? The answer is no. You will be able to see this stuff. And here's how you will be able to see this stuff. Remember, whenever you send a worker to build a building, that worker has vision. It can see what's going on. It has better vision than the building that's being built itself. So as long as you put your worker on the outside of the house that's being built, you can see the moment when someone tries to build a watchtower. And so this is like almost the exact timing when a watchtower would try to go up. But because I have this worker on the outside, I can see the watchtower come up. I can't even see the worker that's building it. It's like right here in this square. But I can see like this amount. I think the vision is like, I can see this. Yeah, this amount of the watchtower. And as a result, I can send workers for my castle to try to stop this from happening. So there are ways to go about that. Okay, worker scouts now. In every RTS game that you've probably come from, StarCraft, StarCraft especially, one of the first things you're ever taught, and it's drilled in your head, worker scout, always scout, always scout. If you want to scout to see if you're getting proxied, you want to scout to see if you're getting cheesed or anything like that. However, and there are obviously exceptions to this. You probably don't want a worker scout in Littlewargame. There's two reasons for it. The first reason is that you are sending a seventh of your economy. Over 10% of your economy is going to the other side of the map. Remember that you start off with 7 workers, not 12 like StarCraft. You start off with 7 workers, so sending a worker scout is not just risky to do, but it's extremely expensive to do. And you also have units like the Raider and the Wolves that are going to be able to scout for you anyways. Like, let's say you did a worker scout and then you followed it up with a Raider scout. You're pretty much getting the meaningful information during the Raider scout once your opponent has committed to some sort of build. Whereas with the worker scout, all you're really going to see is the house being produced or the production building that's being produced. It does give you a little bit of information. Obviously, the higher up you go, the more valuable a worker scout can be, because the higher up in skill you get, the more important information becomes. But it's usually not better to scout with your worker than it is to scout with Raiders or with Wolves in that case. Also, don't scout with your worker. If you can avoid it, just keep your workers mining. It'll increase your economy. And then, so the second reason why worker scouts aren't the best thing to go for, it happens to do a lot with the build orders, actually. A lot of build orders nowadays, whether it be 2 Rex Raider or Rex just Raider expand, or whether it be 1 den expand or 2 den expand, there's not very many mech builds that have scouting in it. I don't think there are any, except for maybe gyros, if you want to count that. But build orders naturally have scouting as part of their build order. And if you think about it like this, the fastest unit, like the fastest attacking unit you can get, is at the same timing as a scouting unit would come out. So even if you were getting cheesed, as long as you're getting your scouting unit as fast as you possibly can, like the raider, then you already have units to defend the cheese. So even if you didn't send a worker out to scout and you were getting cheesed, you would still have defense as long as you were building a scouting unit, whether it be the raider or at least building some sort of units at home at the same time. Let's talk about gold mine saturation. So this is specifically the economy of Littlewargame. It's a little bit, it's simplified because all you really have to worry about is gold. It's just one resource in the game. All you have to worry about is gold. The only other thing you have to worry about is how you're mining your gold. Okay, so what does that mean? It means you want to have even workers at all mines. So the reason for this is because gold mines mine more efficiently the fewer workers you have mining the mine. So let's say that you had 3 castles, 3 mines, and you had maybe like 15 workers or something like that, like some outrageous situation. Rather than having your main have all your workers, you would want to do something called a worker transfer and transfer workers to each of your mines until you have an even amount of workers at each base. It's a little bit costly to have your workers not mined while you're doing the transfer, but over time it becomes more efficient because your gold mines are mining more efficient. So the number of workers per mine, if you're just striving for straight up efficiency at each of your gold mines, is 10 workers. 10 workers per gold mine is the most efficient mining you're going to get. 12 workers is going to get you the most amount of money, though. Obviously, the idea it's an RTS. You're playing against your opponent. It's not necessarily about efficiency, but like you versus your opponent and how much money you can like get over them, that kind of stuff. So even though the 12 workers at a gold mine might not be the most efficient thing to do, it is the most money generating thing to do. But if you had like 2 castles, 2 gold lines, and you had a total of 12 workers, you would want 6 at each mine so that you're evenly mining. Both of the mines have low worker counts, which is good. Obviously, continue to produce workers. Try to get it to 10. Try to get it to 12, and then move on from there. So there's also a lot of build orders, just as a by the way, that stop building workers at 10 per gold mine, and it actually frees up a lot of economy and a lot of supply later on. For units, especially if you're trying to go for some sort of tech. So another reason why 10 workers might have the advantage over the 12 workers. But yeah, just recap: 10 workers per gold mine, 12 if you want more money, and then make sure that you have an even number of workers at each mine. Let's go ahead and move over to defense. So I seriously doubt that new players have been cheesed just yet, because you typically need to have a pretty good understanding of the game in order to come up with cheeses in the first place. There are a few that exist, and I'm pretty confident I made some videos on them. I think I made a 2-den build order, at least I should have at some point. And so people can like look up build orders for Littlewargame, look up some cheeses. They exist. They definitely exist. So let's talk about the defense. Whenever you do get cheesed, whether it be a 2-den wolf build, and wolves act a lot like zerglings in StarCraft 2, where they regenerate their health. They're pretty fast. They don't do the most amount of damage, but in Littlewargame, damage doesn't really come by quickly. It's kind of just like over time. The longer you're in battle, the more damage you'll do. But things like wolf cheeses can be pretty hard to defend against. In those cases, as long as you're building some sort of scouting unit, maybe some sort of archers to defend if you're playing Rex, if you're playing mech, some Gatling guns, if you're playing beasts, some wolves of your own, as long as you have built some sort of defensive units, what you can do is pull some workers off of your gold mine. I like to pull 4. Some people like to pull up to 6 workers from their gold mine. Add that to their defending army that they have so far, whether it be 2 archers or something, and defend the cheese using those workers. The reason why pulling workers works against cheeses is because in order to pull off an effective cheese, you pretty much have to stop building workers at 10 and then just fully commit to production, which means that your opponent has probably already built their second castle and have maybe around 12 to 14 workers. So you have workers to afford. Like you can afford to pull workers off of the gold mine. It's not like you're going to be behind in terms of gold. And workers are really good for defense. Like they're surprisingly resilient. If you hold position them, their hold position micro is insanely strong because of the target priority this game has. If a worker is on hold position, the AI will naturally want to not target the workers, but instead target any army that's located next to the workers. So if you can get workers in front of any army units, let's say you have some like workers and then you have some archers in the background. If you can hold position your workers, then they will not get attacked and at the same time be able to attack anything that touches them. So it's pretty insane. And then at the same time, you have the gold walking, the mineral walking, where they kind of phase through units. They have no collision as long as they're gold walking, and that means they could pull off some pretty sneaky surrounds. So pull workers when you're getting cheesed, and then pull away your workers when you're getting dropped. So something that you don't know or that you might not be aware of is we have this unit called the airship. It functions very similar to a medevac in StarCraft 2, except it doesn't heal units. It's just purely for picking up stuff and dropping them off. I think it would be like a medevac or a dropship in StarCraft 1. It's like exactly the dropship in StarCraft 1. Or the Reaver in StarCraft 1. I don't remember what it's called. So you can put some pretty powerful units in that airship. The most common drop you're going to see is something called the catapult drop, or the cata drop for short. It is where you put 2 catapults in an airship. You fly the airship to your opponent's gold mine. You drop the catapults there, and then the catapults are going to be targeting the workers at the gold mine. And because they're all clumped at the gold mine, the boulder that the catapult throws will do splash damage and damage all the workers. Once you get +1 attack upgrades for your mech army, that's just gonna one shot. If both of those catapults hit, it'll technically 2-shot them because it takes 2 catapult hits, but effectively it's just gonna one shot a mineral line. So in those cases, the standard operating procedure is to pull workers and then try to kill that airship somehow, whether it be to get archers there to try to kill the airship, because what makes the catapult drop so effective is that they can kind of be juggled by that airship. There's like almost nothing you can do with just workers. So if you could get some ballista, if you could get some towers to try to target that airship down, even before the drop comes, that's like the way to deal with it. Once you have like a tower and some archers in the bases there, then you can deal with it. Additionally, once you get to the higher levels, you can build a airship and 2 ballista, put the ballista in the airship, and you can literally like chase down any airship and kill it. You don't even have to stop to like drop and pick up the ballista again, because of how fast you can do the micro. And how quickly the ballista fires. So those are some tips. Those are all the tips that I have for Littlewargame. Some pretty basic stuff, some pretty complicated stuff, but hopefully that gives you a better understanding of how the game works, and hope to see you guys in the next video. Remember, if you liked it, if you enjoyed what I was talking about, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hopefully I can see you guys in the next video. Talk to you guys later.